What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Common Sense, the podcast. Happy to have you guys here with us this week, and got another interesting guest for you guys. You guys all asked me all kinds of crazy questions, so I got a good one for you tonight. This is a guy I've known for a long time. Well, we've been working together now, 4 or 5 years?
I was thinking 6 or 7.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a while. Actually doing stuff probably about 3. Yeah. Well, you guys, I've got Greg Hancock, my personal financial advisor that I use. He's with Spectrum Financial Group. And welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, the things people will do to earn your business. You know,
or do for their clients.
Yeah. Things you do for your clients, man. I like it. We got him here, so now you guys get to fire away with your good questions.
Oh, we're taking live questions too.
Yeah, man. I mean, you never know. People might just pop on here and start asking you all kinds of stuff.
They might do that.
And he ain't telling you any of my financial plans, so don't even ask. Well, Greg, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you're from. Just give everybody a little background for people that don't know who Greg is.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Greg Hancock, again, Spectrum Financial Group. You know, grew up in the Dallas area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. Grew up in Dallas, graduated from Hillcrest High School, and graduated from there, went on to UNT, got my bachelor's degree. Mean Green. Got the bachelor's degree there. My senior year of college, I know you've heard this story, but I'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
My senior year of college was sitting there and just literally knew I couldn't sit in an office all day. I mean, even sitting in this box right here is kind of making me nervous, but thought, all right, what do I want to do? So back in the day, you answered ads in the newspaper. So went through graduation, pulled out the Dallas Morning News, and decided to see what it would be like to get into construction. So got into some construction management and did that for about 19 years, I guess. Threw a little mortgage business in there just to make it fun. Then the housing bubble popped. I guess it was, 2008? I'm not sure if you remember that.
Yeah, 2007, 2008. Yeah, that's right, when I shut down my decorative concrete business.
Yep. I was with a big national home builder at the time, and 2010, I got invited to leave. So I thought, okay, now what? And it was actually a chance to start over. I got to change some things. So went forward and kind of trying to figure out what I want to do, and ended up chatting with my mom one day up in her office, and she said, why don't you think about this a little bit? And she was a financial advisor as well. Thought, hadn't thought about it, but let's talk. So I already knew the owner of the firm, knew the manager, knew a bunch of the co-workers, etc. So started doing that, I guess about 14 years ago. And
wow.
Yeah, so been with I guess it's 14 years in February. But it's one of those things you look back on and think, all right, I wish I would have started this sooner, but was I mentally ready? Who knows, right? Just sometimes I guess the man above puts you on a different course. But been doing that and just getting out and helping people and serving people and seeing what I can do to make a difference, I guess. And so I guess it's when you and I crossed paths 6 or 7 years ago. I think it had something to do with the construction industry, because that's most of who I work with are people inside of the building, construction industry, things like that. So it's been great. Love it. So,
what was that path like when you decided to make that career change? I mean, because that had to be a pretty big change.
Yeah, it was. Good question. Well, I was burned out. I had, with technology, they had everything changing from the building perspective of meeting with the clients as often, the homeowners, and going and walking the houses and just getting out and just smelling the lumber after it was cut and all that good stuff, over to more computers, and they wanted us to carry computers and do this and that. And I thought, I don't like that direction. So it was a bit scary, but I'd also just said, I want to get out and quote unquote burn my bridge. So, and that's one of the things that I learned in the sales when I started with Spectrum Financial is sometimes you just have to burn that bridge. And that's what I did. I said, I don't want to go back. No offense to anybody. Made a lot of great friends. Still have a lot of great friends from those days. But for me, it was time to change. And I was getting older. The heat was killing me. 30 degrees outside when it's snowing. They still you on the job site, even though you're not even supposed to be there. You can't pour concrete. You can't do anything. So it's like, all right. So it was good. I was like, okay, this is my next chapter.
That had to be a large learning curve though too, to jump into that, because I think back to like my early 20s, and I forget, it's like Travelers the umbrella.
Yeah.
And they had all these different things where you go get, it's almost like multi-level marketing, they got you in and like, hey, you can sell life insurance and all this stuff. Like, we'll send you these courses and you can learn all these different programs and get licenses for all these things. And I had a buddy that was like ate up with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he ever made money doing it, to be completely honest. But I remember him going down that path. But I mean, for like a year at least, he was going to all these classes, having to go take all these different tests. I mean, I can only imagine how many different licenses he had. Similar road for what you were doing?
Yeah, it's a good point, too. It was a lot. They always say it was like drinking from a fire hose. And I was 41 when I started. 2 young kids and just getting into a new relationship with my wife and her kids. And it was a lot. But it's like I was meant to be there. And I like learning things, and I like looking at things, and it's like, okay, this is fun. This is different. It's a challenge. It's something I want to do. But yes, it was a lot of late nights. Even the processors and whoever else on the back office would be like, we got your email at like 11:30 last night or 1 in the morning. It's like, I still got things to do, because I'm learning. They throw a lot of training classes at you, which are good because that's what you really need. You have to learn most of the quote-unquote products, how to service some of those things, some of the sales technique, because I wasn't in sales before that. So, and me being kind of an older dog, I thought, all right, I'm going to have to learn how to adapt some of this. And it was some really good training, and the guys who were in charge of the training classes understood, okay, you've got some more mature guys here, gals. You don't need to go and show them. I don't need to be micromanaged or have somebody hold my hand. Just point me in the right direction, show me some things, and we'll get going. So, but yes, there was a lot of training, lots of licenses to get. You've got to hang your hat somewhere.
Yeah.
But I never really thought about the multi-level marketing piece. There are 1 or 2 companies out there that are like that. But I didn't think that because, again, my mom was in the business, and I had grown up around it. So I already knew, and I knew the successes that the colleagues have and the owner and whatnot. And it never felt like sales. It's just like helping people. I mean, I don't know, you and I met, I never came at you and said, hey, you need to buy this. It's like, hey man, let's go do something.
Yeah, I think it's
a little different approach.
It's a big difference, y'all. And I mean, that's one of the things I will say about Greg. I don't refer a lot of people. He's probably the one person I referred more than anybody, because I like his style. I like his approach. I made a post earlier in the week where I was telling you guys one of the big things that we focused on over the weekend when I went to Apex Live was, having the 4 F's in line, your family, your faith, your fitness, and your financials. And if any one of those are out of whack, that starts multiplying. The same way, if not to a greater degree, when you have those things aligned and you're being disciplined and you have that focus there, that multiplies too.
Catch up with you fast.
Yeah. So, Greg's not the only financial advisor I have. You guys have seen some of these other people on here that, fortunately, I know too many financial advisors is actually my problem. Everybody I know is a financial advisor in some arena or something, it seems like, at least for a period of my life. And, there's different avenues for different people, but I think where it really registered for me was, you didn't come at me hard. You weren't trying to just sell me. Our first things was you inviting me to some networking things that you had going on after we had our first little lunch where we got together, and man, I don't even remember how we connected. I don't remember if it was LinkedIn or Facebook, but I remember you reaching out, and then I was like, yeah, I'll give you some time, because at the time I was needing that help.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite ready to make a decision. My wife and I had some other ideas of how we wanted to invest money, what we wanted to do with money, and, life happened too. And, I can honestly say, he says 7 years, so I'm going to go off 7 years. 4 of those, I did jack shit with him. I mean, legit. He did not manage a single dollar of my money.
And that's okay.
And he never went away. He never bothered me. He never was like, over the top aggressive or anything. Like, he would call me and go, how was your quarter? Is this a quarter where you've got something you need to do, or are you uncomfortable? What's your pulse? And you were always checking with me on those things. And you stayed consistent. I mean, throughout the whole thing. And honestly, I had my wife meet with 2 other people before I had her meet with you. And, we went down that process. And, I mean, like, every time, like, I was just kind of testing the waters to see where she was at. Because I was, we went down a bunch of different paths. The real estate market changed because she's a realtor. Yep. And we were going to flip some homes and do some renovation stuff, and obviously the market changed. We didn't feel comfortable doing that. So some of our plans were changing, even though I had in the back of my mind some things I did want to do with you. But the other bigger things that at the time I felt were a bigger need, that I thought maybe I was going to go a different direction. But every time I was like, that guy's too eccentric. I don't want that guy managing my money. That guy's this. That guy's that. And we went down that road for a long time. I mean, literally, you guys, I'm not kidding when I said he went through the ringer with me for 4 years before I ever gave him a single dollar to invest. And trust me, I asked him a gazillion questions, because as good as I can be at my businesses, when it comes to investing, that's where I feel like I have the biggest learning curve. Yeah. And I need strong people around me that know more and that are willing to teach me and to make it make sense for me. And I mean, I just want to commend you. I think you do a phenomenal job on that.
Appreciate
like, you have always answered every question, no matter how big or how dumb I thought it was. I mean, I've texted you at all hours and been like, hey man, what about this? Like, are you a fiduciary? I mean, like, as simple as that.
A lot of questions.
Like,
that's it.
I mean, like, that's really how our relationship developed. So that's why I think, too, I have such a comfort in referring you as well. That, I mean, I know you're not going to go in and pressure somebody into doing something that they're uncomfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of financial advisors, I feel like, they don't care. They either have a quota or they're just worried about their bottom line, and you've never once given me that impression.
Well, it could be product driven too, right?
Yeah,
it's just
product driven.
What are they looking for? What are they in for it? What do they need to do, and things like that. But to me, and I was taught, and it's always been this way. It's relationship driven, and that's why I think I did very well prior to becoming a financial advisor in the construction industry, because it was always about helping my guys. Right? Helping not only the customer, because they're the ones buying the home or whatever we were building at the time, but it's my guys. It's my workers. And, some other guys, back when we were in the trailer, I'm sure you know those construction trailers that are there, and there'd be a group of us, and they're like, why are you getting things done? How's this happen? It's like, just take care of your people, man. If they're needing to get paid, pay them. Just take care of people, and it'll come back to help you out. That's what we're here for, here to serve. And I took that philosophy into my next step, which is what I'm doing now. And it's like, I'm not product driven. I'm not worried about selling something. If I do what I'm supposed to do and help people, everything sells itself. I don't want to sell. I want people to buy. And I don't even want them to buy. I just want them to realize what they need and just use me as a conduit for the tools and the resources that they want, right? Because they're not really buying anything. You didn't buy anything from me. I'm just helping you reallocate. I'm just helping you put things in different places.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, is just genuinely caring and helping people. It's relationship driven.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's never been one direction either. I'll speak personally recently because I've gone back and forth with this a lot, and you and I have, and we're going to dive into a few of these categories a little more because I think these are important things for people to learn about, and I think you're a great teacher of these things.
Thank you.
Life insurance. I have some life insurance. I don't have a ton, but I was very fortunate that with my military time, the amount of time I was in there, I kept some really cheap, just straight up when you die life insurance. I have that taken care of. That was super cheap, and I've maintained that since I was 18 years old. I've never made a single change to it. My rate stayed really good. We're good. And you've always said, keep it.
Yep.
Let's not do anything, change there. But there's been other things that you've really educated me on. But even then, I still have not gone down that road yet. We're working towards that, and we have a plan for it.
Yes, we do.
But, and there's a lot of things that go into that, that's different to each individual.
Right? We'll call it coaching.
Yeah, coaching.
Not just to direct or point in your right direction, but it's helping coach you through some of the things so that we have successful outcomes.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I've even come to you and been okay, I do want to do this. Is this something that you can do? And you're like, yeah, I mean, it's not what we mainly do, or it's not our bread and butter. Are you going to be able to provide direction in this area of what you want? And I'm like, yeah, I want to build a stock portfolio and a fund portfolio with these things in it. And I also want your guys' opinion. Here are the things I'm looking at. And I've said it to you and your team, and you're like, all right, we can get down with this, and we're good, and, go down this avenue. We're going to research a couple of these. We're unfamiliar with a couple of these and heard of this, but don't really know a lot about it. Let me get back to you in a week. And usually it's not even a week. I mean, we're usually talking 48 hours. This guy's like, hey, man, I got it. I already got it. And did you know this? Here's this other thing too that I found when I was going down this rabbit hole for you. And I mean, you've always been very, very consistent in that. Maybe you could talk a little bit. I know I already said the word once, but this seems to be a big part of the marketing with financial advisors right now is making sure that the person you're dealing with is a fiduciary. Can you maybe explain that to people and what the opposite is so that they kind of know when they're looking for somebody that's either a financial planner or a financial advisor, what maybe to ask, what maybe to look for?
I think you brought it up. Good point. So it's the fiduciary, and let's define that. Fiduciary means we do the right things for our client. We do what's in their best interest, not our best interest. Some people are out there calling themselves financial advisors or whatnot, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But yeah, it's exactly what it is. We do what's best for our clients. So when you have fiduciary, that means you have the right licenses in place to help do that. And I won't get into the details. There's a lot of different ones because you've got, where I'm at with Spectrum Financial, I get two hats. I get the insurance hat and I get the financial hat. So I get the best of both worlds because they do play in together with each other. But yeah, you've got to make sure that you have the right licenses in place to even give the advice. That's one of the biggest things that they taught me when I jumped on in the firm. It's you're not allowed to go out. And I didn't do anything wrong. They were just teaching me up front, hey, you're not allowed to go out and talk about financial stuff or give advice without being properly licensed and trained and things like that. That makes sense. I wouldn't want anyone coming to me saying, hey, you need to buy this and that. Well, show me your licenses. Oh, I don't have anything. Well, help me understand that a little bit better. But that's what the fiduciary part is making sure that whoever you're working with has your best interest at heart. And, I'm going to take a step back on the advice piece, the financial advisor. When you were asking for certain things, just like all of my other clients, that's what the title is, right? Advisor. I'm giving you our advice. Not everybody follows it all the time, and that's okay. We're still going to be friends. We're still going to do business together.
Yeah.
But our advice is being from what we do in the experience that we have, and we've got a team at the office that's just phenomenal, hundreds of years of experience combined. This is what we would advise. And just let you go and kind of choose what you want to do. Because again, we're not selling anything. We're just providing the tools, the avenue on how to help.
Yeah, and I mean, I highly recommend that you find somebody like that you can talk to, just because this can all get really confusing. You know, I had an experience when I had my decorative concrete business where, because the accountant we had hired did not check one little box, and by checking or not checking this box, it didn't mean I was going to get any more money. It didn't mean I owed any more money, but because this box was missed by this accountant and not checked, I then got audited by the IRS for 5 years. Oh. And if any, and this is while I'm shutting down the business. Like, I'm in the process of shutting it down. We had to keep the books and keep them technically open for 5 years, even though 3 months into this, we shut the business down.
Wow.
And that was absolute hell. If you've never been audited by the IRS, consider yourself lucky. Like, that is something you never want to go through. I promise you don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
It was so bad that I fired the accountant that made the mistake, who didn't even apologize or anything, like acted like that wasn't my fault, whatever. I'm like, you're the person that filed it. She's like, well, you reviewed it. You could have seen that box wasn't checked. And I'm like, I assumed if a box wasn't checked that meant that it wasn't supposed to be. Because there's lots of unchecked boxes on here because they don't apply to me based on your advice and what I'm paying you to do.
Yeah.
So fired that accountant, moved on to the next accountant, got a really good one. And thank God I found Robert, because Robert's been my accountant ever since, and I've gotten a lot of shit from a lot of my friends, like, especially when I was younger, why are you paying this guy all this money to do your taxes? Like, you know, like you have so little, like, especially before I owned a house.
Yeah.
They're like, you have so little. You just go in and file this online. I'm like,
could be opportunity missed.
Yeah, opportunity missed, or I screw something up. Have you ever been audited by the IRS? No, that is why. And I will pay him instead of paying the $99 to tax advisor or whatever. Nope, I pay him his fee, and I'm cool. And you know what? I almost always got money back. Yep. I learned later that's not a great thing, because that means the government was holding on to more of my money than they should have throughout the year. All things you learn along the way. But, you go back to, like, people, you're going to end up with sitting at your tax accountant if you've got a good one, and they're going to start asking you questions that you're probably, if you don't have some kind of financial planner or advisor to also talk to, unless you're probably going to go with whoever they recommend, if they do recommend somebody, they throw things at you that you don't know. I mean, they might as well be talking Chinese to you because you don't understand their lingo. Yeah. And most of them are not real good. I don't know how many tax accountants you guys have dealt with, but most of them are not real good at breaking it down to a normal human's understanding.
And most clients like when their financial advisor and their CPA or tax people work with each other, right? I work with a lot of accountants. And I was talking to a client just the other day about something, and they're like, I didn't know that. It's like, yeah, me and your accountant, or your accountant and I, if I want to speak properly here, had said, hey, here's what we need to do. We work behind the scenes because that's what you're hiring us to do. Right? We're trying to figure out tax strategies, deductions, all of that stuff that you as the client don't need to be worried about from day to day. Yeah. It's about what can we do, what do we need to do to get things right, get you on track, stay off the radar, all those kind of things. And that's a lot of what we do too.
So you guys, I'm even learning something tonight, because I don't have him linked up with my accountant yet. That needs to happen. That's going to happen before we do our taxes.
I was going to say way before filing. But it's, and you need to have, and your viewers need to know, have a relationship with these people, whether it's the accountant or a financial advisor. If you've just got somebody that you call every so often to check the numbers, that's great, but it needs to be relationship driven. It really does, because when I have relationships with my clients, and I do with 99% of them, it smooths everything over much easier, and it's fun. I like waking up. I didn't like Monday mornings when I was in construction.
Yeah.
Because I'd get there and I'd have 40 emails waiting on me, and this house flooded or whatever. But now it's like, I love it. I get back to it. And Friday afternoons come, it's time for shut down for the weekend. It's like, no, I'm not ready. Wait, stock market, stay open. Just give me 30 more minutes. I like where this is headed.
Yeah.
But when you're in that kind of position and you're having fun with your clients and you enjoy and you're doing this stuff, this is not a job. It's not work. It's just getting out there and helping people. And I love it. I love the lunches. I love the meetings. I love getting to show people things and to see their faces just open up and realize the education that they've gotten, or that there is help out there, right? That there's ideas that they haven't even thought of. And a lot of people, I was talking to another lady today and just went over her statements with her from another advisor that wasn't advising anything. It was all just sitting in cash. And she loved her returns. And I said, well, that's great, but tenfold that. Just as an example,
there's no compounding.
Yeah, and there was no relationship. It was a one time a year thing, and that was it. It's like you're missing out on so much, moving everything over.
And one time a year thing's not bad starting out if that's what you're comfortable at.
Yeah.
For a long time, we were a one time a year thing. Like I could start up this what's that called? An SIRA? Am I saying that right?
No.
I'm a
SEP
IRA. Yeah. So my wife had one. Yeah. I didn't have one, and she had hers with somebody completely different that we got set up. And here I wasn't taking advantage of it. Yeah. And we set mine up, and it was just a one time a year. Hey, Garrett, this is the max you can do. It's going to help you with your taxes. My accountant said it was good. So I just sent him a check and was like, all right, let's see how this does. And what he did with it has been doing phenomenal. So I was like, all right, here we go. All right, that worked. So
and that could change up too, right?
I need to learn more about this. So
it's about different strategies and checking on it. Because a lot of people think once you get into one thing, you're locked in. It's like, no, let's change it if we need to. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss.
Yeah, it doesn't have to stay in one arena.
It gets kind of boring anyway.
Yeah.
Let's make some changes. Let's do something different.
And then, recently I've invested some more money into the same kind of like a similar type thing where he found some funds for me. I gave them some stocks that I was interested in, and we did kind of a joint account thing there where I can like call him and say like, hey, my quarterly commission check was really good. I want to throw X at this. And he's like, do you want to just put it in the fund? Do you want to put it in a new stock? Is there something you're looking at? Yeah. And he always comes back at me with things, which I love because then it forces me to kind of dig in a little deeper. It makes me learn a little bit more because bottom line is unless you go for a degree in this stuff, you don't learn this shit in school. Unless your parents are really savvy at this or you had some kind of business or something where somebody was teaching you the ropes in this game, you don't learn this shit in school. I mean, I think everybody should get a little more like financial literacy on this stuff. I mean, like, how do you feel about that?
I agree. I think so because having educated conversations is fun. I love educating people, and usually when I'm done talking with a client or a prospect, they know a lot more. And it's fun because as you can see the relationship grow together, like you and I have grown, you've learned a lot and you utilize what you've learned. It's more fun to have conversations like that. As to, when I'm starting out with somebody that's new or young, it's great. They just don't know a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm there to help them grow and guide them. And those can be 10-minute conversations. But, the fun ones are 30 minutes to an hour and we sit down and we're breaking some bread or grabbing a drink or whatever, and it's just talking, and then just naturally it bleeds back into what we're doing. But let's go talk, and then we can talk business for the last 5 minutes, and that's what it's all about sometimes. But
so in today's world where financial literacy is really challenging for a lot of people, what do you think is maybe some of the most important advice you give someone that's just starting out on their financial journey?
Yeah, good questions. I think the biggest thing that I would give, the biggest piece of advice that I would give out is start small. And again, you've heard me talk about this and all of my clients, if I've got any of them listening to this, is take baby steps. Seriously. If anyone comes to you and says, hey, they find out what you've got in the bank or whatever, and they say, hey, we need to put it all over here, you should run for the hills. You really should.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that the relationship is established, starting small, having the emergency fund. A lot of prospects and clients that I meet with the first time, even the second or third time, they might not do anything, and that's okay because they don't have much to do with yet, right? It's about giving them some guidance and giving them some direction and saying, hey, here's where I would start. Build up your savings account to this or that. So I think that financial literacy comes in with that. And a lot of people don't realize too, I know we're talking about a lot of financial stuff, but just to flip it back on the insurance side, that's huge. So if there are people out there wandering around without any kind of life insurance or risk mitigation, as we call it sometimes, what happens if? I've got clients that come to me and say, hey, I want to put X amount in an IRA or whatever, and that's great, but let's take a step back. I don't want to just take the money. Let's talk through this to make sure. You've got 2 or 3 kids, maybe a single mom or single dad or whatever. But if they don't go home and I've got a small check and it's in the bank or in their investment account, that's all I've got. Whereas we could have taken that and leveraged it with some life insurance. Now the burden's not on whoever's left to take care of those kids, right? It's about helping them understand what's really important. We can do whatever's needed, but I just want to make sure people are educated about the different pieces that should come in. And just don't go fast. Just take the steps. Now, I've told you before, a lot of people want to be in their comfort zone. That's cool, that's fun. But at some point, you got to get shoved a little or just a little nudge to get out of your comfort zone, or you're not going to grow. And that's with anything.
Yeah, that is absolutely with anything. Especially when you don't know that arena.
Yeah.
What's on the other side of fear? I mean,
risk of the unknown.
Yeah, but once you get there, is it really a fear?
Yeah.
This keeps coming up. I've said this a lot lately, but it really rings true in so many areas. I got to sit down finally after 2 years. I mean, I've had many conversations with this man. He's one of my favorite people in the entire world to have a conversation with. He's so genuine and just down to earth, but I finally got to sit down with Luciano and get him here on the podcast. And he said something about when you look at something that you're not good at, like a fear or something that a weakness, like something you're not good at, that's usually, if you go down that path and start exploring that and you try to work on that, almost always you find your superpower, because you don't know about it, or it's maybe something you suck at. And you just keep going at it, and you keep trying to figure it out because you suck at it. You don't know jack shit about whatever this thing is, But then you start developing it, and then you develop all these other things along that journey of getting there. And I think this is the same thing.
Yeah, it's almost like fight or flight. If you want to learn something, you have to go and fight for it.
Yeah.
You have to go learn. You have to be willing to take those challenges.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of transitioned perfectly there, even though that wasn't intentional. But the other thing I wanted to really let you dive into, because you and I have gone down this road several times over 7 years. And again, we have a plan. So I'm not just like ignoring him. He knows the plan. I know the plan. And
I'm waiting. The drum roll's going.
Yeah, exactly. A little more cowbell. Yeah. So life insurance. Let's just talk about that for a minute, because I think this is one of the bigger stigmas and one of the most misunderstood things in all that you do and for people in general, because I think it was so ingrained, at least in my generation, from our parents and grandparents and watching them or listening to them talk about these things. Back in the day, there was a lot of snake oil salesmen with life insurance.
Yep.
And most people strictly believe, or their understanding of life insurance is, I buy this policy, I pay this much money a month, and when I die, my family gets this check. And yes, that is one type of life insurance. But can you kind of explain this to people the way you have me over the years? And just kind of let people know that, like, there are other types of life insurance and that there are other uses for it. Maybe you can dive into that for everybody a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it depends on everyone's situation, right? So the main two types of life insurance that we deal with, and I won't dive too deep because I don't want anybody falling asleep on this podcast here, but are the term.
Well, it's just Evan listening right now, so I mean, we don't care if Evan falls asleep.
Are the term and the whole life, or the permanent policies. And a lot of people do think that, like what you're saying. And that policy that's been around the longest is the term, right? It's the term type coverage. If somebody passes away, the check is getting sent to their family or whoever the beneficiary is. But there's another type of policy, again, it's called whole life or permanent, whatever you want to call it, that allows us to strategize, use as a tax bucket, for a lack of better terms, so that we can strategize on making some money on that money, right? So most people think of life insurance as just having a death benefit, but that type of life insurance also has a living benefit, and it does generate value inside of it based on dividends and other factors that any one of the larger insurance companies might pay out each year. And that can be used however you want to use it, whenever you want to use it, etc. Some people call it what we call a retirement supplement, because it can add up to a considerable amount of money over the years. It's not going to happen quick. It's not going to happen overnight, and I've told you that, and tell my other clients, it's not get rich quick or anything by any means. It's not real sexy, but it's safe and it's secure. And there are some years when the market might be down. I know 2022, we had a pretty rough market where a lot of my clients were looking at their overall financial home or their portfolio, and they would see their life insurance making more than their investments. And it's just the way the world works sometimes.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen all the time, but there are those avenues. And you don't put a whole lot in there. Just put enough to make what makes sense after, we strategize together and come up with things. But it's always good to have that bucket that you can put that money into that's going to have some earnings that are not taxed and available whenever you want them.
Yeah, like you can pull from them if you need to do things, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have a medical emergency or something like that maybe your accounts are a little bit low.
Yeah, or maybe you fall ill or you become injured or lose a job. We call those policies like the Swiss Army knives of life insurance policies, because there's just so many different things that you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had clients call in the past, and a lot of it gets emotional too, that something has happened and they have become disabled and they don't work, they can't work. So we start making adjustments to these policies, and I hang my hat with Mass Mutual, that's part of Spectrum Financial Group. And it's such a strong company, such a great company, and we can make those adjustments on certain types of policies to give them relief. And they're like, I didn't know you could do that. It's like, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. That's part of how it's designed. The fun part is not just introducing these tools to people, but being in the business long enough to being able to exercise these tools, put them to use,
seeing it go to work,
seeing it work, seeing that family have relief. And I've delivered some death benefit checks too. Tough. And I have never had one client or client's family say, "Nah, we don't need it," or decline it.
Yeah.
Everyone's just like, "Thank you, this will help." So there's just lots of different tools in our arsenal that we use to help.
All right, Evan has a good question for you. As much as I hate this, because like I'm not a fan, and I think he's very rookie.
Yeah.
But
Hey, Evan, how are you?
So Sprout wants to know, what are your thoughts on Dave Ramsey's baby steps?
I think Dave Ramsey's steps are good. I really do.
So see, one guy says good. I said I think he's a jackass.
Yeah,
But
he's good to a certain point, right? He's really good at helping people save and get out of debt and strategize that way.
yeah,
And some of that I don't do. I can't help people. I don't know the different industries out there that can help people get out of debt. Like I'm 50,000 in debt or 100,000 in debt. Who can I turn to? Well, let me make some calls and see. But once you get to the goals that he might have, or anyone, for instance, might have, what's the next step? That's where myself or any financial advisor might come in and say, okay, now that we have something to work with, now we want to work on some tax strategies. That's where I would jump in and say, and I don't really know, and my apologies to you, the exact steps, but I've got a pretty good idea.
yeah.
But that's what I would say. And yeah, I mean, I've listened to a lot of his stuff, and a lot of what he does makes sense, and a lot of his phrases are buy, term, and invest the difference.
Yeah. Go talk to your wife, or if there's somebody else you want to talk to about this, like go check it out and see if there's something else here that maybe you're just not seeing yet, or maybe this is an area you really should consider, because I mean I'll tell you guys this, and I owe my wife a huge amount of gratitude, because she did 98.9% of this legwork. We did a full-blown financial audit with them, because I'll be honest, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to like what I spend. I'm not the guy that sits there and budgets out everything to a T and like, this is where we're at, this is what we're doing, and then like it just kind of happens. And I'm also in a sales position, so my stuff comes in chunks. It's not like I just have this salary that just comes in, and it's not the same thing. So my scenario, I'm not good about that. It drives my wife absolutely crazy. And, we did this more for me than anybody, just so I could see, because honestly, if she hadn't done what she did and you hadn't insisted upon, like, hey, like, this is a good idea, this will be money well spent, you really should know these things. I don't know that I ever would have done it. I mean, to be completely honest, like, I probably would have just gone on the same way and just not be cognizant of the fact that, like, holy shit, we're ordering Uber Eats way too much. Like, this has gotten out of hand. We buy all these groceries and half of them go to waste. Like, we really should be better about eating at home, which we've made. Like, I mean, I'm just giving you, like, a real life example of, like, the dumb shit I do. But I'm sure I'm not the only one. I guarantee that. So, it kind of is what it is. But going through a process like that and starting to get a bearing on that, you kind of realize, like, maybe that's a weakness of yours. I noticed for me, the way I was raised, the way I grew up, I mean, which is insane, and my dad's probably rolling over in his grave right now because my dad was a banker, and, like, he used to make me save up for things and stuff like that, but he also let me take my money out of my savings account. He didn't say, like, you should have a checking account and a savings account. No, you have a savings account so you earn interest on it. So, like, I didn't really learn the full spectrum there on this stuff, which is really kind of sad. I mean, I'm laughing about it, but, like, my dad was a banker, and there's so many things that I should know, and, like, that's not my strong suit when you start talking about algebra and stuff like that. So
Algebra wasn't my favorite subject either, but it's about that, but it's also about making sure that and you're cognizant of what's going on. It doesn't sound like you were.
No, I wasn't. I mean, I was just writing checks and trying to live life, and as far as I was concerned, as long as I handled, like, my known responsibilities, and we were maintaining the lifestyle that I promised my wife and the things that I've worked for, then to me it was good.
But
you know what I mean?
About the future at that point.
But yeah, I mean, I was really poor at that. When I was younger and I worked for big corporate America, that was easy, man. Like, the one thing my dad did teach me, and that we did from that was, there I had, like, a 401k, I had money matching medical account and stuff like that. And, man, I would just maximize that. And anytime I had a chance, or I got a pay raise once I was comfortable in my salary at that time working for corporate America, if I got a new pay raise, all right, cool. I can have a little bump of living, but half of it is going straight into the 401k. Like, I still maintain that thing. Once I got out of corporate America, that all went to shit for me. Like, I quit doing any of that, and obviously a lot of it wasn't, I didn't know how to do it outside of it, because that structure and all that was provided. You sit down, even if I changed jobs between big corporations to the next one, like when I left Royal and Sun Lines Insurance and went to Safeco, you sit down in your onboarding, all right, what do you want? And I mean, I would even have them take out extra money out of my checks, just so that I never owed money on my taxes at the end of the year. The dumbest thing ever, I learned later, but, like, that's the way I thought. That's what I did, because if it's automatically taken out, then I don't know I have it, and I don't think about it. As soon as it's done, and you're used to, this is what I have, you don't think about it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because, like, 401k plans, a lot of people don't realize this. The 401k plans that they put money into, that's great. If you have that opportunity, especially if they match, you've got to do it, because that's free money. But not at one point, I bet you're going to reflect back as I'm talking, not at one point when you were going through all that, did they give you any advice? Because they're not allowed. They're not allowed to. There aren't fiduciaries, as you brought up.
No, once a year you got the little thing like, here's your.
You ask them a question, what do you think about this, or can I do this or do that? Like, well, you need to contact your financial advisor. So it's a lot of that too. That's where I come in. A lot of my clients appreciate that too. I get to look at, talk to, chat with about what they might have at other places like Can you do that? It's like, show me what you got. Let's talk about it. Let's see what's going on. do something with a client or a prospect that doesn't make sense just to get a sale. Never, never, ever. I just don't operate that way. I like helping people, I like serving people, and I like being invited back. You know, I love referrals, the relationship that you and I have.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have any of that if I was operating that for me.
Yeah. So how do you balance that? Because I think this is a good lesson for anybody in sales, because it's a crucial element of it, is trust. So, I mean, you're dealing with some highly sensitive information, highly sensitive emotions a lot of time. You know, like it's kind of like a whole package. So what has this taught you about building and maintaining trust with people?
Taking it slow. Everyone's different. You have to find out what someone's comfort zone is. I've got to find out what their need is. You know, I'll talk to the person that referred them over, and usually that person gives me an idea. Hey, here's what this person needs or looking for or is going through, and that might be the first thing that we tackle. It might not be one of the first things that they need. But in talking to them, if I find out, hey, this is what they're looking for, then let's just go ahead and do it. If it makes sense, let's just go ahead and do it. Taking it slow, building the trust, asking a lot of questions. And to me, too, something I learned from the sales courses that I went through over all these years is it's almost like setting what we call an upfront contract. So I'll go in and we'll sit down and I ask permission. Hey, we can get pretty deep and dirty into this, but we can stay on the surface. It's going to be up to you. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. If you're not comfortable, tell me. It's okay. But some of these questions are not only for me to help understand who I'm talking to and how I can help, but it's to help you self-discover. It's like, it's a two-way street. What can I do to help out? What kind of relationship can I have? I'm not a transactional guy. If somebody does call me and say, hey, I want the cheapest of this or the cheapest term or the cheapest set of tires out there, I'm not your guy. I don't know anything about you.
Yeah.
You know, so how can I help you if we don't talk? I'm not good at that. I understand. Have a great day.
Yeah.
It's just, I've got to know the person I'm talking to. And that's part of the fun too. Is getting to hear something. I have met some phenomenal people. I have been to some businesses and some places that I had no idea I was driving into. I mean, it's been crazy, the things that I have seen and what people do. Because the surface is just that. It's the surface. But once you start peeling back the layers, it's an interesting world. It's fun. It's a lot of knowledge. And I've got a lot of clients that have taught me a lot too.
Oh, I'm sure, because you get all walks of life. I mean, from the ultra rich to, you know, your average everyday person. I mean, that's a broad spectrum to pull from.
It can be, yeah.
A lot of different values and things that they look at or
To see how
consider.
things change and just all that stuff. And find out who drives the family, right?
Yeah.
I've sat down on many meetings where I would have one of the spouses drive the conversation and then come back ready to execute some of these things that the other spouse might decide to speak up and say, nope, we're changing gears. Like, all right.
So how many times have you been wrong?
How many?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit it either.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of times like that. Oh, I had one when I first got into business, I'll never forget, awesome couple. It was a referral. I talked to him for, I don't know, several weeks. I said, here's what we're going to do. Talk to the wife. We're good. All right, this is back when we still had all the paper, right? So I'm getting all these things printed off, ready to go. Get out to the house, sit down, and I tell you what, I've never seen a wife throw such a strong curveball. And I said, nope. I said, well, okay. Looked at him and said, I guess we better follow her lead. He goes, yeah. Just like, okay. So, and that was a lesson, right? That was a lesson for me. I need to engage everybody that's going to make the decisions up front so that we can figure out what is best for this family.
Yeah.
I learn something new every day. some things, and I'm like, wow, these people have been saving, and there's a gold mine, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They're like, I've got a huge bucket of money, it's just sitting. What do? You know, in my head, I'm just rattling off all these things, but I have to take it slow. Okay, let's see what's important to you. Then on the flip side, same thing. I've gone in expecting people have monumental cash supplies or something of that nature. And
Because the outside looks like everything says these people have money loaded.
And you get to them and they're $1 million in debt. And it's like, holy moly. Okay. So I have to kind of mentally and pretty fast change my structure, change my thought process and say, okay, this is okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start working on this. You know, a lot of times people break down too. You know, you and I were talking before the podcast started, and just the things that people will tell you.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of it's confidential, but it's just like, it's pretty deep, it's good stuff. But yeah, to answer your question, just going in expecting one thing and having something else thrown at you, you have to be able to manage those expectations.
So something else I think you probably run into a lot in your industry is, you know, if you start talking about legacy, and I hate to add the word purpose, but I'm going to, a lot of people equate purpose to their financial situations, and sometimes they want that to be their legacy. You know, they have children, they have grandchildren, and they really, with whatever business they started or, you know, that they ran for X amount of years, their big purpose could be leaving a legacy. So how do you help your clients align that if that is something they're looking for?
Well, it really, you know, kind of flipping it back on you is how do you define legacy? Everyone has a different definition of what they want. And it just has to do with finding out, and it gives no questions. What is your legacy? What do you want? What are you looking for? Are they a business owner? Do they want everything to pass down to the kids, or maybe one kid? Is one kid's a wild child? Do they want a spouse?
That never happens. What are you talking about?
I've had a lot of clients want to pass, maybe not the whole thing over, but a large percentage over to an employee who's been super loyal. You know, forget about that. It's like they've got a business, but they might have an employee who's been with them or a manager 10 or 15 years, and if that person's gone, the whole structure falls apart.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that. It's not a family member, but that could be part of the legacy too. So it's just trying to define what someone is looking for and what do they want. Are they wanting the entire business being passed down? Do they want something for their kids just for college? Do they just want a trust fund? It's kind of a broad question, but it would have to go in and find out the depths of what they're looking for.
Yeah, because I mean, you guys can help people out in so many arenas. I mean, I don't know if you want to just kind of like list some of them off or what. I didn't know the right way to tackle this, but I mean, like, from whether it's like getting your retirement, your insurance, or your insurance of what you're paying for, like state up, like just say home, auto, like they can review all that stuff. If you need a will or don't have a will, like, I mean, there's just so many things. Because I know when we did our big financial review, it was like, all right, here's all the things you can do or you should think about. What things do we need to tackle? What's the order of importance? Because, you know, like, it changes with me and Sarah not having any kids. You know, there are things that are higher up on our priority list that obviously than probably somebody that has kids, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really comes down to finding out what their circles are like. And that's what I have to do is I have to surround myself with good attorneys.
Yeah.
Good accountants, other types of advisors to find out what these clients are looking for. Because as we do any kind of a plan or just sitting down and talking to someone about their legacy or whatnot, It's asking, what do you need help with? And I need all those pieces, though. Give me what you have. And that's why on a financial plan, we do financial planning as well. We're going to dig deep into what you have, what you're missing, what areas are you looking to get strength in? Because a lot of that comes down, we work a lot with attorneys on the wills and the estates and the probate, and people don't realize how those pieces are so significant, because if somebody doesn't have a trust or a good, strong will, then when it comes time to it and somebody passes, everything has to go through probate, and that could take months or years. So it really depends on what they're looking for.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, brother. I'd like to lie and say this is the first time we've ever drank whiskey together, but that would be a lie.
It won't be the last one either. So yeah, a lot of pieces, just kind of tip of the iceberg, helping clients with the life insurance, disability coverage. We do the annuities. And then on the financial piece, just anything and everything you can think of financially. The IRAs, helping with the 401ks, the rollovers, financial plans, partnering up with different people, home and auto, attorneys, CPAs, things like that.
Yeah.
It's all part of your quote-unquote financial home. And that's what I enjoy doing. Helping
so that's one of the things I hope you guys are getting from this episode is maybe you didn't know some of these things existed, or maybe you didn't even know these are areas you're lacking in your overall financial game, that hopefully just a little bit of awareness, you can start going down some of those rabbit holes.
Yeah, absolutely. And and a lot of people get scared or concerned or think they don't need.
Money is very scary to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the subject is, right? Opening up to somebody can be scary. But just finding someone that you're comfortable with,
or admitting that you don't know about something revolving finances.
I don't know it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surrounded, thank God, I'm surrounded by an awesome team, and you've met them.
Yeah.
I've got my right-hand man. His name is Billy. I've got a team up at the office.
We call him Billy Badass at our house.
Yeah. And there's just a lot of people that help make me who I am. And I tell people that because if I don't know something, I go and I ask. I'm not going to tell somebody something just because I need to fill the void.
Well, money's also scary to people that maybe come into money that aren't used to having. Maybe they got, maybe somebody in their family did pass.
Yeah.
And they come into money that's money that they've never had that kind of money before in their life. That could be scary and intimidating too if they don't just go out and blow it all, or do something stupid, but what to do with it, how to do the best thing with it.
How do I protect it?
Yeah.
Right?
How do I not pay $1 gazillion in taxes on it?
Make sure it's not taxable.
Yeah.
Making sure you're doing right. Make sure the relatives aren't coming out of the woodworks when that happens, because that does too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to protect it from
somebody dies, and it literally brings out the crazy in people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched it time and time again with family, friends. I've been super fortunate. I've never seen it happen in my family, but I've watched it happen in many.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible thing to witness, that human beings
destroy
turn
families.
that way.
It can destroy families and friendships too. I've seen that happen too. A lot of partnerships.
So what do you think is maybe one or two of the biggest mistakes that you see people make time and time again? I mean, I know that can be very individualized, but overall through your years experience-wise.
Yeah, probably with cash flow, just not having a budget and sticking to the budget and just spending. A lot of people don't have, and it's crazy because before I got into the business and got to dive into some of these personal things that I'm diving into now, I thought everybody was fine, had the 401k, IRA, whatever. But as I dive into more and more pocketbooks that I see, I realize people don't even have an emergency fund. Have a few $1,000s set aside in case the water heater goes out or you have to have a tire or something.
Yeah.
And I just use those as examples, but that's probably one of the biggest things that I see is just the cash flow, the mismanagement of cash flow and just overspending. How many subscriptions does somebody have? How many accounts does somebody have?
Yeah.
How many open credit cards do people have with small balances that are getting charged crazy amounts of interest on? It's just reining that in and realizing.
Because a lot of people don't use credit properly.
That's exactly right. And, whether it's a cable bill or internet bill or whatever, even with home and auto, are we shopping that frequently to make sure we get the best deal? So cash flow is the biggest thing.
And that can even be in an unexpected way too. I mean, I'll speak for me personally because I know when we did our run through, there's a time like it was more like, dude, you're sitting on too much. Like, you need to put more of this to use. Like,
cash heavy.
You're more than covered here. Whereas like, that was the one thing I was always taught. Like, make sure you have X times your bills, yada, yada, yada. And you're like, all right, I think you have that covered. Like, I think we need to figure out where we can do things because you're not doing yourself any favors.
Well,
here.
that's where the opportunity miss comes in, right?
Yeah.
If you're cash heavy and you've got enough in savings to cover a few months worth of crazy expenses that might come up unexpectedly, and you've still got that money sitting there, why is it sitting there? Why is it not working for you? And everyone's heard that. Let your money work for you, blah, blah, blah. Well, if we're getting whatever interest rate we could be getting on some of that cash, why aren't we getting that?
But you can also be completely blinded to that because that just feels like your norm.
Yeah.
Like, again, I wasn't the most budgeted, regulated person when it came to finances. So, like, it took me 7 years to kind of start figuring it out. I wasn't really there. But, I mean, I think that's
I think that scares people, too, because they think, okay, if we give this money to Greg or whoever and it's invested, we don't have access to it. And that's not correct, right? No, 401ks, IRAs, those are a little different, and it's got kind of in a different category. But overall, generally speaking, when we put money into an investment account, if my clients need money, they call me and say, hey, I need X amount, and I'll have it to them within 2 or 3 days. And I just tell my clients, it's just like having a savings account on steroids. Now, yes, it could go down because we're in the market.
You might pay a big fee for doing it.
Yeah, well, no fees involved, right? But it could be, if it's in the market and the market goes down, that could hurt a little bit. But overall, and I've told you this before too, looking at a snapshot of the Dow or the S&P or whatever, over 40, 50, 60 years, the market's going up. There's going to be some dips and some valleys along the way. But to help answer that is, it's in an accessible account that we manage. And if you need some of that back or all of it for another project or a business venture or a rental house or whatever, you call, we sell, we liquidate, and we distribute. It's very simple to do.
Yeah. So how do you see the financial industry and financial planning industry changing with all the evolving technology and AI right now? I mean, I'll tell you guys another key thing here. If you just want his newsletter, go get his newsletter because he sends out these amazing newsletters every week that I learn something every time, and it's one of the few that I actually read that I don't just send to my junk folder.
It can be challenging, but if we're doing what we feel that we need to be doing from the heart and the soul and the mind, I'm not worried about it. Because, again, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, to me, this is relationship driven. There are 1-800 numbers out there people can go to and manage some of their own money. Great. And I'll tell some people, if you want to play with some of your own money or go online or do something, do it. Set up a small account. Go play. But if you want it professionally managed and to know the ins and the outs with the tax strategies and some of the laws and keep up with the IRS regulations, that's where we come into play. And yes, AI I have noticed it to be a challenge in some areas, but I've also noticed it to be very helpful. It is helping make our jobs go a little faster and streamline them, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain.
Yeah,
because
I get it.
A lot of people think, okay, open an account, give me the money. Well, there's so much behind the scenes that we have to do. And thank God.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy even in your own banking account.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bank with Bank of America as one of my banks. And just moving money who they're affiliated with Merrill Lynch to buy stocks damn near takes an act of Congress to do. It's much easier for me to call Greg and go, hey, man, I want to buy this stock. Like, can you just, like, pull the trigger on this? Like, for whatever reason, it's much easier for you to pull money out of my account and go buy these stocks than for me to transfer it to Bank of America's affiliate and buy the damn stocks I want to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it's the institutions that we work with, and we have that respect, too.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes down to knowing everything in the back office. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So it's not just as simple as, like you said, pushing a button. And some people learn that. Some people learn it the hard way. Is they, I couldn't do this, or, they'll wake up and say, I lost X amount of dollars. It's like, well, go back to your history. Yeah, you bought this. The stock market opened, and they don't realize sometimes that the market does have before and after hours, trading hours, right? It's the future, what we call the futures.
Yeah.
And if they're not watching that, and I watch that a lot, you're not going to see what's about to happen when that bell rings at 8:30 Central Standard Time. It could go way up or it could be way down. So it's just those little things. It's the little nuggets that we've got from a professional perspective that allow us to have these tools that help us to manage everyone's money.
So I think there's a key thing that I've noticed over the years of working with you, being your friend, talking to you, and sitting here with you tonight. And it's something I've been really working on that I'm really good at in some areas, and as I've taught tonight, financial being one that I'm not as disciplined in. But I feel like you almost become a life coach in your role. Like,
I've been called worse, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like, so how do you look at that? Because I think one of the biggest factors so far in everything that you've talked about is at a certain point, you need people to have some discipline financially. Mm-hmm. So how do you coach or work through that with people to have a little more discipline? I know what you've done with us personally, but I mean, I'm just curious, like in a broader spectrum,
yeah. Well,
how do you handle that? Because if people had discipline in more areas of their lives, they would be way more successful across the board.
Yeah. A lot of it comes with the experience and things that I've gone through personally and professionally and seen. And again, it goes back to finding out what people want, what people need, and taking my time and building a relationship. If I go meet somebody and start throwing out just ABC or XYZ, some people might jump on board, but that's not really what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I want to experience certain things with certain people. I want to make sure that we're doing the right things. And honestly, if I go talk to somebody and they hand me a check before I know anything about them, that scares me. I don't know if I want that, because
that's weird.
I don't know what they're really looking for. And if something goes wrong, who's going to be to blame? The financial advisor.
I mean, but has that happened? Like, I'm sure it has, because, I mean, there are dudes with fuck you money.
Yeah.
Well, guys and girls.
Yeah.
But they just come up and go, Greg, $100,000. I need to do something with it. Just here's a check. Do something with it. Like,
it has happened. I just sit down and say, okay, thank you. Appreciate that. But let's talk a little bit and find out exactly what you're looking for. And do you understand the consequences of what can happen if we do this, right? I'm here to help you. I want to build the relationship up and find out what's needed. But if I just take this and I go put it in the bank and put it in your investment account, of which I haven't even opened yet, and it drops 10%, what are your thoughts? Are you going to be mad at me? Well, yeah. Well, that wouldn't be fair then, because I don't know who you are and what you're looking for. So I can't just go do that. And they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And there have been a few of those you have to take back, especially, and I'm personality D-driven, and I've met some other D-driven clients who are, yep, let's do it now. It's like, all right, so I have to take a step back and think, all right, I've got a D, we got a D versus a D, and we're in the ring here. Let's see how we can de-escalate this a little bit and make sure that we're taking care of the client. That's where the fiduciary part comes in and say, okay, are we sure we want to do this? And that's where it all comes down to just notes and emails and say, all right, here's what we're going to do, but I'm going to check in with you like every few days and make sure you understand what's going on here. Hadn't happened very often because I usually go through more of a process with those kind of people than anything. It depends on the referral, right? Who referred them over to me? And that referral might lead it up to, hey, this guy's got X amount, be ready. All right. So I'll gear up and get ready for that one.
Man, I think that's funny. That's kind of wild because
they've got to understand.
It's funny because man, I'm giving y'all a lot of personal fucking information tonight. But I mean, it is what it is. You know, I just pulled the trigger on some things with you, like literally the beginning of this week. And it's funny because what you just said totally applies, because I can remember having a phone call with you earlier this week and being like, all right, I'm good. Like, it's all there. Go ahead. You have my permission to pull the trigger. And you're like, all right, this is going to take a day or two, but I'll pull the trigger. And I'm like, okay. Well, the next morning I woke up and I got my morning brew email, and I'm looking at the stock market and shit, and I'm like, everything is down right now. And actually, one of the stocks that I said, and all that was down pretty good. And I was like, God, I hope he gets that in today. Just buy. It's all down. And I'm like, well, I can see the money was pulled, but it may not get bought today. It may get bought tomorrow. And this is early morning. I'm sure this email that I got is based off a closing yesterday, so it might already be back up again by morning. Who freaking knows? I'm like, bottom line, we pulled the trigger. We made educated decisions. It's areas we want to be in.
Prepped
and we went, yeah. But I mean, I knew all this going in, and it's funny. The very next day, I see the same things. It's like, oh, everything's green again. Nothing's in the red. Yeah. I'm like, this is the fucking stock market. This is why this shit is so frustrating.
Buckle up, yeah.
And again, it's if you want to play quick, easy, fast games, go take your gambles on the penny stocks. You know, that's not the game we're playing right now. So it's it was a quick reality check, but I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was sitting there reading it going God, I hope he got that order in, because if he did, this is going to 10X just on day one. Greg's going to be calling me going, hey, buddy, did you see how that did overnight? And I'm like, actually, he wouldn't do that. He's actually never done that. But in the back of my mind, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. It can take a bit to execute, but usually once we get the funds transferred, we buy.
Yeah.
And that's based on written instructions. But you left out one good part for your viewers here. What else did I do with part of that? Who else was involved in that communication? Your wife.
Oh, yeah, for
Just
sure.
making sure.
Yeah. No, I mean,
everybody has to be involved, because I don't want your wife coming out.
Oh, no, for sure. Woo! No, I mean, I was trying to remember the freaking stock symbols and shit because I asked you guys to find me one. All right, so long story short, I asked you guys to find me something additional to the direction that we gave you on a group call with my wife. Mm-hmm. So my wife was 100% a part of this. Yeah. She was not left out in any way, shape, or form. But when you called me back, it was just us having a conversation, and you're like, all right, well, we found this thing, and this is what we feel the strongest about. How do you feel about it? And I'm like, I'm good. That's right in the avenue of the direction that we gave you based on our conversations. I'm good with that. If that's something you guys feel strong
about the communication,
pull the trigger, because it's five out of 6 things were already nailed,
knew what you
nailed
wanted.
to the stake.
Yeah.
You know, like we knew, like
You
those
knew.
5 triggers.
Yep.
There was 1 out of 6 that was like the curveball we threw you guys. And we're like, hey, give us one more. Like in any of these fields that we just gave you, whether you guys want to talk pharma, AI, whatever it is, whatever your cup of tea is, I said, find me something else that you guys are really excited about.
Yeah.
And you came back with one and you said, this is the one where the strongest.
Let's try it, right?
And you said, and actually, I got to call Billy after this to make sure this is still it, because Billy was still up. Billy Badass was still going through stuff.
Yep.
And you're like, Billy may have another one. I'm like, well, if Billy still feels as strongly about this one, like, I'm cool with that. I'll say pull the trigger.
Yep.
I literally went home that afternoon. I'm like, all right, I don't remember the exact ticker. He was talking kind of fast, and I didn't, like, get the whole ticker thing down. But this is the category that we're going to dump this other X amount of money in. This is what we're doing. She's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. Like, that's cool. That's what we talked about.
Yeah,
but, like, I mean, you know me well enough to know that, like, I mean, I can sit up here and say whatever, but, like, there is nothing that, like, we haven't already talked about.
Exactly.
And
you know,
we're going to
too,
run
we
through
can
that
always-
gauntlet. Like, we've been together 15 years.
Yeah.
Married for 11.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to get hashed out beforehand. Like,
Absolutely.
we're going to be on the same page going in. Like, we may not stay on it throughout the process. We have to go back and forth a little bit. But, like, by the time we're talking with you, we are on the page.
And I love that. That's perfect. And that's exactly, and keep in mind, too, that just because we made those decisions, us collectively all together, doesn't mean we have to stick with that, right?
No.
You may wake up tomorrow and say, dude, sell. Yes, sir. Let's do that. So, that's what I like about it. It's fluid. All of this stuff is fluid. A lot of people, and I want to make sure they understand, don't realize that once they choose something, they're not stuck with that. We can make adjustment. That's what the reviews are for. Whether it's an annual review or semi-annual review, if I find something that I like better, I'm going to let you know. If you find something that you want, let me know. Let's go after it.
You know what? And I'll say this, too, for those that are wondering or that are listening to this. You do that about twice a year, I feel like. I mean, we talk way more than twice a year, and we touch base way more frequently. But twice a year, you'll reach out and go, hey, have you looked at your accounts?
Yeah.
Like, this is where you're at.
Let's dive in deeper.
This is the progress, or this is the setback. This is where we're at. Are you still feeling good about this? Is there changes you want to make? What are you feeling? Where are you at? Yep. And usually I'm like, bro, I'm in for the long haul. Like, I'm not fucking changing a thing. Like, this is our plan. We're sticking to it. And if we want to add something, like, that's another conversation.
Yeah. But that's important.
We kind of stay there. But you do that about twice a year.
Yeah.
This is not you pestering me, bothering me,
selling anything. It's
quarterly,
just, let's chat.
monthly, weekly. No. We talk within these periods, but, like, it's not even about that 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Like, it might be like, hey, have you looked at it? Or, hey, have you considered this or thought about this?
Right?
Like, or it might be just a quick text like, hey, man, like, are you good? Yeah, I'm good, man. What about you? Are you still thinking about this? Yep, still thinking about it. Our plan is still a go. Or sometimes it's been, bro, the economy in my industry sucks right now. My last 2 commissions have sucked ass. I'm not blowing you off. We're pushing this to Q1. All right. When's a good time to call you in Q1?
Gotcha. Yeah.
All right. I get my Q1 check on this date typically. Like, we're talking here. And he's never, and that's why he has my money in the works, is because he's never questioned that. He's never been a dick about it. He's never, you've always been supportive. You're like, all right, cool. That's your decision. I'm cool. But if anything changes, just let me know. But, all right, cool. we'll roll back. I'll follow up with you on
Absolutely,
this day.
yeah.
And he does not call me or email blast me before that. Like, it's none of that.
Yeah, it's
And
just
you know what?
respectfully
I can't
checking
say
in.
that about everybody, though. Like, that shit happens.
But tell me, you've asked me a lot of questions. Tell me about that. What are some of the other guys and gals doing that some of your podcast viewers might want to see? What are some things they should look out for that you've seen?
Man, that's a really good question. Some of the people that I happen to know are just in different arenas, I think would be the best way to say it.
Okay.
So, yeah, can they help you with the same things? Like, I've kind of categorized those of you in your industry that I know, right? So there's some of you I know that typically deal with people that, you know, are on X income money spectrum. And then there's those here, and then there's those here. You float between all. That's why my day-to-day is with you. That is plain and simple. That's why my day-to-day is with you. Because you float all the categories. Now, if one of the guys in one of the higher tier categories calls and I happen to have that kind of cash, or I'm willing to take that kind of risk, then cool, I want to know about it. I want to hear about it. That kind of becomes the battle within itself, though, too, because it's like, I have that, but like, do I want to put all that in there? Because because some of them, like, and it just depends, and like,
Well, it could be
they all offer different things,
projects,
but it's different projects, it's different things. Like, do I want to put that much into one thing? Because sometimes that one thing, that's the bare minimum to get in, and that bare minimum might be the top of what I have available.
Exactly.
So, is mine and my wife's comfort level there that collectively, like, I mean, and I'm not going to lie, there's been times I'm like, shit, all right, I really want to do this. Like, what do you think? And she's like, hell no. Like, we're not putting all our eggs in that one basket. And I'm like, because it's at the top of our basket. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I feel you. I get it. Like, that makes sense. Like, I fully understand. Oh, man, like, this is going to chap my ass if, like, down the road I hear about this.
Never
but
know,
then
though.
there's been other times, you know, like, I've had a lot of friends come to me with investment opportunities at different times. And, man, a lot of them just haven't made sense for me at the time. Like, I fully believe that timing is everything, you know, and sometimes would it have been a big stretch for us to do it? No, but it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's other times that, like, man, we just didn't have the bare minimum to get into that deal. And I was like, bro, please don't forget about me.
Yeah.
The next time you have something like
Ping
this,
me.
please ping me, call me, whatever, because I want it. I just can't do this right now.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a mix, you know, like, and sometimes there's been situations where I have a lot of friends in a certain industry, and one of them comes to me with an opportunity, and it sounds really good to me, but it's not my area of expertise. So I call my other friends that are also in that space, and I'm like, hey, here's what's being thrown at me. If you had this opportunity, would you do it?
Yeah.
And if the answer collectively was yes, then we would have pulled the trigger. So far, to date, the answer has been, yeah, man, that sounds a little too good to be true.
Yeah.
Or, hey, man, we're having a really tough time. Like, I already have this existing business in this segment. And, hey, man, you're my friend. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you, like, it's tight. Like, we're busting our ass just to break even right now. Yeah. Like, we're not in danger of going out of business, but, like, I'm not sure that, like, right now I would, like, venture off into something new
Yeah.
in that arena. So I vet a lot of people, man.
That's
like,
good.
and I have a lot of conversations. So sometimes it works, but like, you're not always in that position. Sometimes, and I'll say this too, sometimes you got to trust your gut. So far, I don't feel like me and or my wife have really lost out on anything. I think when it hits, it'll hit, and it'll be like good things, you know, like, because I know enough people and I talk to enough people that like things come about and there's opportunities. You know, it's like we have a lot of different things we're invested in, whether it's this podcast, the upcoming podcast. You know, there are a lot of different things in play, as you and I have talked. That
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, you just kind of have to gauge things.
And
you constantly have to be aware.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, be aware and not afraid to learn, but like, trust your gut too, man.
And ask a lot of people around you, right? And that's part of why I ask, is because I want to make sure that you, and you know this, and the viewers know that any good financial advisor should be approachable.
Yeah.
Is that you need to be able to bring those scenarios to whoever your main guy is and say, hey, there's an opportunity, what do you think? And you talk through it. And there have been a lot of those situations, and that's what I do with my clients.
Yeah.
I'm not the end all, right? I can help you with all of the stuff, but if there's an opportunity or a project that you're going to have an opportunity on, why not? My goal is to see you succeed and to see my clients do well.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be really as simple as this too. Like, you know, if you talk about the life insurance thing, and I don't even know that I've had this conversation with you. It's funny how these things just keep rolling and snowballing. But, you know, like, my biggest thing was, like, early on in some of our discussions, it was like, all right, well, if you do this thing, like, it's best in most scenarios, or in your scenario, that, like, each quarter you like, it's automatically taken out. Like, kind of the philosophy I was talking about with my dad that he taught me.
Yeah.
You know, like, it automatically pull it. Well, honestly, and I don't know that I expressed it to you, like, my biggest thing was, but I'm sure you know this because we've been talking for 7 years, quarter to quarter, my shit is so unpredictable. Like, one can be absolutely amazing, out of this world, and then the next two suck.
Yep.
And then the next one's good again, not great, and then the next one sucks, and then the next one's great, and then the next two suck. Like,
all up and
it's
down.
it's so volatile that, like, that part is, but me having a better grasp under my, like, overall budget and financial stuff now, and kind of knowing a little bit more, that's changing and getting better. But it actually took me kind of relaying poorly that thought process of being scared to commit to a quarterly thing, that one of my other financial friends was like, dude, like, you know, you don't have to do that. It could just be a one time a year thing. Yeah, whatever absolutely. Quarter is good for
monthly,
you.
Quarterly.
And I was like, you know, honestly, when we were sitting there having the conversation, and this was like late hours after a lot of bourbons, I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, I guess I'm kind of a dick. Like, I haven't even talked to Greg about that. Like, I guess I probably should have told him, like, my fear is this quarterly commitment.
Yeah.
No, if you just tell me I can do it
different options
in any 4 quarters, whichever one feels comfortable and good, that's the quarter we do it in.
Yeah.
And just and that works too.
Well,
like,
that
there's
has a lot
so
to do
many
with the
solutions,
investing.
but like I'm telling y'all personally, like, that was one of my fears. And y'all obviously, like, we have a great relationship. Like, I never shared that with you.
Yeah.
Like, but like, that's an easy conversation. It's easy right now. At the time, I was like, fuck, I don't want to call and tell Greg, like, I'm just not being as good as I should be, and that, like, this quarter was sucked, and, you know, like, yeah, I could still do it, but then I'm going to feel strapped, and I'm going to feel that tension. But, like, we've overcome so many of those things and, like, just built that up over the years that, like, it just gets easier and easier to, like, do
have
that.
Those conversations.
Like, I just hope that, like, each person that's, like, taking something from this, you find somebody that can advise you and do that. Like, that you can have that kind of flow in conversation.
Yeah,
with.
you have to be open for the conversation, right? You have to be
Yeah.
able to communicate, talk to each other, feel comfortable with that.
But you also feel like it's a weakness. Like, I don't want to be like, because let's be honest too. Like, this is the other thing that like gets in the back of people's heads is, dude, my financials are an open book to you. Like, you know more about me and my wife financially than anybody in the world. No, I mean, like,
I appreciate that trust.
My business partners don't know that much about me financially. I mean, like, think about that.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of crazy. Like, I'm in business with two other guys. Like, we have a business together, and they know a portion of my financial stuff, but like, they don't know it all. Same as I don't know theirs.
Yeah.
But like, you know more than any other person. You know more than my mom knows about my financials.
And that's what we have to know to help you build, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it goes hand in hand.
Trust.
But that is scary in the same note that, like, it is, and you have to build that trust because it's scary. Because if you were just somebody that was like trying to make money and do your business
well. It took years to get here, right?
It also, like, that also happens in your industry, and that's the unfortunate side of it.
Yeah.
But like, I don't discourage you guys from, like, starting small, like he said earlier, and building a relationship and trust with somebody, because, like, bottom line is you have to do it. Could you get burnt somewhere? Could something lose you money? Could something, like, yeah, those are all risk factors.
Yeah.
You want to mitigate as many of those as you can.
And that's why
we've been talking for 7 years. We've actually only been doing transactions for about 2.5, 3.
Yeah, absolutely right. But you're right. I mean, it comes down to the trust. It comes down to the patience. It comes down to what your goals are. And we have to know all of that.
Yeah.
And without knowing it all, we can't advise and do what you're asking us to do. But yeah, it's a comfort factor for sure. So
and nobody other than my wife
Yeah.
knows more of my personal goals than the guy sitting to my right now.
Yeah.
Like, period. End of day, end of story.
And it's a matter of earning it too, right? I hope, and obviously
Absolutely, man.
You have to earn that.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
takes
it's
a
a
lot
process.
to be able to earn that and to go through the processes and the motions and everything to get to that point. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's what I'll tell everyone. None of this happens overnight. It's a relationship. You work on it. You build on it. Things take time. And that's part of my upfront contract when I talk to people is if you're looking for a transaction, just need to say, I'm probably not your guy unless you've got some kind of an emergency. I want to start the relationship. And every single one of my clients that you can talk to date will tell you that I've told them that. It's just about getting started, talking through it, and let's see what we can do to help out. No promises, no guarantees. Let's have some communications, no guarantees on it.
So what's 2025 look like for you? Like, what do you got coming up? What do you got planned? Like, what are some of your goals? What are some things you're trying to do?
Good questions. We've got a couple of kids that we're challenging and ready for them to graduate college. And I'm in a blended family. We've got a couple of kids in high school that are doing awesome. So it's just kind of evolving with that. And that's what I love about doing what I'm doing is because I can allocate the time to my clients, but also allocate the time to my family. I mean, you see pictures of these icebergs, right? These motivational pictures where you see the tip of the iceberg, the success, and
damn, we follow the same shit
stuff.
too.
And you see that, and it's like, well, what about the bigger part, the Titanic that didn't see it, right? That huge part of the iceberg that's below, about the hours worked, about the tears, about just everything that goes into it. The 12 a.m.s, the 4 a.m.s, just all of that goes into it. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it. So 2025 is going to be good. I think regardless of what side you lean on, the left or the right, I think the country is headed in a good direction now.
At least financially.
Exactly. And, well, looking at the market, like you said, the market's gone up and down, but I think that we're going to be in a better position globally, financially, to where things are going to prosper the way we want them to prosper.
Yeah.
And it's about setting things up and about getting ready. And that's what I've kind of been doing, is just gearing up my clients. I had a few of my clients that were a little older and needed to be a little more conservative, and we geared them that way.
Yeah.
Middle of 24, just kind of getting ready. And so 25, they're ready to say, all right, let's get going. So 25, we're looking for a pretty good year. Should be a good, strong year. If the Fed continues to do what they're saying they're going to do about the interest rates and things like that, all of my friends and acquaintances in real estate are getting ready for a good year there as well. So I'm excited to see some of these things transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I am too.
So
I think 2025 is going to be a much better year than what we've had the last couple.
Yeah, I've seen some smiles on some faces on different media and news outlets from different political figures that I haven't seen in a few years. And when you see those smiles on their faces, they're ready.
Don't you think it's also kind of funny that, like, the person that doesn't have shit or knows shit about whatever it is you're asking them about is the one that's going to give you the most advice? Like, they're going to be the person in your corner telling you, like, the person that really doesn't have shit, and you tell them, like, hey, man, I talked to Greg today.
Yeah.
Man, I pulled some triggers. I invested in blah, blah, blah. And this person's doing jack shit with their life. Jack shit they know about financial investing.
Yeah.
But they're going to give you a 200% review about your decision you just made, and they absolutely know nothing about it.
Yeah.
How do you deal with, like, outside factors like that? And is that common in your world too, of, like, constantly seeing that kind of stuff, or other advisors that do that kind of stuff?
Some of that excites me, but some of it humbles me too, right? I mean, you see things, and there have been a few situations where we've talked and gone through, and it doesn't happen overnight, or in one day, but just through the process, it's like, all right, and I have to question myself too, right? I have to look in the mirror and say, all right, did I do the right thing for this client? And time will tell, but most of the time it's yes. But it's funny because, some of the people that you're expecting certain things from, doesn't happen. Sometimes things that you're like, I'm ready to close the file, literally, figuratively, they're like, I'm ready. I'm like, well, I'm not ready. Hold on. I got to readjust some things. I didn't think this was
That's what
go
happened
down.
3 years ago when I called him. I was like, I'm pulling triggers. He's like, shit, I wrote you up. I thought we were just drinking bourbon and smoking cigars together.
You're educating me on all this bourbon. But, so it's just, it can be challenging at times, but so rewarding. And it's fun to see people reach their goals. And when you have those reviews, or when you talk to the 80-year-old who has given you everything, and you can say, hey, you're in good shape, it's awesome.
All right, so before I forget and we keep going down this rabbit hole, you guys always ask, what are we smoking, what we're drinking? We're both drinking Old Fashions. Earlier, I was smoking. Brandon, you're going to have to help me with this. What's the little, like, almost firecracker Nelson Alfonso?
Was it the Alfonso?
Yeah, the blue and white label. The wrapper's right there. Upper. Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
That might be it.
Oh,
What?
that is the Alfonso #1.
Yeah, so Alfonso #1. That's what I was smoking on. That was that short little one. This one always blows my mind because when you start with this, it's literally like, I don't know, 3.5 inches long. I mean, it's small. That's what's left of it. I mean, that smokes for an hour and a half, and I smoke cigars pretty quickly. Not like Elliot speed, but like I smoke pretty quickly. It amazes me how long that little ass cigar smokes, and it's absolutely phenomenal. What I'm smoking now, I mean, you guys should know, this has to be in my top 3 of all time, and I'm so sad that it's never going to happen again, probably. Like, the Panda Domino. You know, Luciano and Pando, that short-lived collaboration. It's still one of my favorite cigars. I cherish these. That's why I give them to special guests and special people in my lives. Like, last time they got 3 boxes, I made sure I was the first person to buy a box. I almost went Elliot on everybody and just bought all 3 boxes. But I didn't want to be called Elliot, so
You're watching your budget.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing, Greg. I called Greg, and Greg goes, "You should only buy 1 box, not 3, Garrett. Like, you have plans." And Brandon's over there going, "Fuck, Greg. Like, that would have made our quarter." No,
he's got to think about it. He's got to think about me every once in a while.
So, man, you know what I think's really funny?
No.
You know what time it is?
You know what I was going to say? Thank you for having me. And I was so nervous about this whole thing.
Absolutely.
First podcast ever. Congratulations to you all and me. This went by so fast. And I was going to say, I didn't even think about the damn cigar because I was so involved in our conversation having fun with this.
That's all right. You have an amazing cigar to take home with you and enjoy. Or next time we sit down with bourbon.
I hope that everyone watching now and in the future have gotten something, a little nugget out of this. And that's what I tell everyone. Every time I go to a meeting or a training session or sit down with a client or prospect, I get a nugget. I get something.
Yeah.
And you learn and you build from that. So hopefully we've been able to provide that. But thank you, because I know there have been a lot of people in this chair.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I feel like honored. It's like, oh, this is cool.
Dude, it's great to finally get to do this with you. And I mean, I'll say this too. I mean, like, even if you guys don't want his financial advice, just connect with him and network with him.
Yeah.
Literally the first year that we knew each other, you hold like monthly, sometimes every other month, sometimes quarterly, but like you're always doing shit and you're always inviting me to network and do shit. Well, and he's introduced me to so many amazing people. Like the interior designer that I used on my personal house, and trust me, I know a lot of interior designers in my business. The one I ended up choosing to help me on my house was somebody I met at one of his networking events.
Good question. Let me take a step back, though. I think the important thing, too, here to realize is whoever you work with, make sure they bring value. And that's one of the things that I said. How can I add value to you?
Yeah.
Not just through this, but it's introductions. Because I think it's important. I don't like asking for referrals or who do you know and the blah, blah, blah without me bringing something to the table, right? I want to bring people that you can meet.
Absolutely.
And people that you can utilize. It's a two-way street. So I think that's important to be said.
And he does that above and beyond without even being asked. Like literally the first 6 times we got together outside of our one-on-one lunch, the first 6 times I was around this man was him going, "Hey man, I'm throwing this networking lunch thing. I've got like anywhere from 10 to 12 people are going to be showing up to this. There's at least 8 people here that maybe you could do business with or that might be an asset to you or an ally. Like you guys all pair together. You're in similar fields. Yeah. I would love if you could make it out, even if you just can stop by for a few minutes. And if you can't, there's still 2 or 3 that I know for sure I need to get your information in front of. And you did that, I mean, literally for the first 3 years straight. I mean, like, granted, we met and talked a lot in between, but, like, that's huge, man. Like, and if more people in sales in general looked at how can I introduce you to somebody, how can I help you more, how can I add value to you? And, like, dude, you didn't ask me for a sale for, like, at least the first year and a half. You knew where I stood financially. You knew where I was at. We had those conversations. And after the first time, you didn't ask me again for almost a year. You said, hey, we talked about this last year. Is this still your same scenario or where are you at? Yeah. And that was the end of the conversation. And I'm not kidding you. Like we've said this many times tonight, 7 years, Been doing business with him for 3. 4 years, like, he only tried to add value to my world, my life, and be there and build a relationship. So many of you want a mentor, or you want to be in a room that makes you uncomfortable. You won't even start a conversation, but even when you start a conversation, you're so worried about what you have to sell or what you're pitching that you forget to just be a human being and build a relationship and make a friend.
Yeah.
And that kills 90% of you in sales, because you're only really, when it gets down to the core, you're more concerned about you than providing value or adding value to someone else's life. Like, you know, Brandon and I have talked about this many times. You can participate without providing any value, or you can provide a lot of value, and man, it just shows through and through. Like, there are people that will take the bare minimum actions that you ask them to take, but then there's those other people that walk in that really embody and envision like the same things, the same discipline, the same beliefs, and it just shows. You can smell a mile away the person that walks in the room that just wants something from you.
Yeah.
Like, and that sucks. And that's probably the hardest thing for someone in a financial advisory role, because of all the sensitive information and the emotions and everything attached to it. And it's people's livelihoods, people's money. You can't get much more personal than that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So,
But yeah, I think this is super funny because we've got like technically 5 minutes left. We had like code signals for Greg because he was so worried that he wouldn't even make it an hour, and he was all nervous. And I was like, bro, we're going to talk. And I told him, I was like, yeah, sometimes we only go for an hour and a half trying to lighten the load. Brandon tried to get me to lie to him. I couldn't do that good. So Brandon's like, next time, just let me handle that. You know, like, I mean, but like, you did it, man.
Yeah,
like, this has been a killer show.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I think great content.
Good. Yeah. And I appreciate that. Thank you. I guess, will you post my information, I guess? I don't know how this stuff works, but
yeah.
Phone number, nobody has a pen or paper anymore, but 214-395-6862. That's my cell. That's what I use for 20 plus years with the people I work with.
All right. So when I repost this weekend,
make sure the email's on there.
I will put your email, your phone number on the post. I will tag him on Facebook. I mean, you guys saw the post for this show. He's tagged on there.
Happy to have a conversation or whatever.
Sarah wanted to let you know, P.S., I'm about to DoorDash dinner.
What are we having?
Yeah, what are we having, babe? Make sure we're taken care of. That's hilarious.
Just make sure it's where we can trace it.
Yeah. Not on PayPal, babe. Make sure it's to the checking account.
It's got to be connected.
Yeah. I don't want to be blamed for PayPal shit.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. All right, man. Well, we end every show with two things. So, my first one for you. If you got to leave your children with one piece of advice, what's that piece of advice you're leaving them with?
Goodness. It's a loaded question. You want it from a parent or from a financial advisor?
That's your choice.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that. I'm buying time.
Or you can do both if you're feeling really
yeah.
on top of your game.
Be happy. Do what you got to do.
All right.
Protect yourself.
And if you don't know how to do that, you can call our mutual friend Jara, who I'm going to try to get booked on here for next year.
True.
Because
hey, Jara, if you're seeing
she's one of my favorite females to follow on social media. I'm a little sad that she's engaged right now because her dating posts were some of the most epic, hilarious shit I've ever read in my life. Like, I mean, we've talked about this at lunch, but like for any of you that do not follow Jara, man, go back in her history and just read some of those posts when like married men would be trying to go on a date with Jara.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Big mistake.
She will.
Big mistake.
She will.
She will annihilate you,
and she will tell you how it is, and that's what we love about her.
Mm-hmm.
She is awesome.
It's solid shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
What's the other question? Yeah.
The last one, man. This is your
Do I need to
free-for-all.
buckle up?
No, it's your free-for-all, so it's common sense, man.
Have I made 2 hours, or where are we?
You have 2 minutes to go, bro.
Wow, I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you, Greg. 7 years to get 2 hours out of him, and he did it. He didn't think he could do 30 minutes, and
Absolutely.
he sat down. And you didn't have to do your code.
Now you got me turning red.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm good.
All right, so maybe there's something I asked you that we didn't get to dive deep enough on. Maybe there's something that you wished I'd have asked you another question about, or just something you want to share with the audience, man. Like, this is literally Greg's 2 cents. It can literally be about anything, but
Absolutely.
your
I
mic.
think we covered everything well, and I appreciate the format. I really do. I think it's huge, and I think that your audience has had an opportunity to understand how things work from a financial perspective, their financial home, etc. You opening up is huge, because when they see that, they're going to realize not a lot of people do that. So I think my biggest thing is, don't be, and I'll look at the camera, don't be scared. Don't be nervous. If you have questions, if you have something that's bothering you that you don't know the answers to, you're concerned about something, ask. Ask me, ask someone, find somebody that you can lean on, because there are a lot of things out there that could go sideways or that could happen. And if you're not prepared, it might not be huge on you, but the impact to the family or to those that you could be leaving behind could be a huge burden. So just think about that, because a lot of times, and just kind of in closing, when I sit down with families, especially couples, and I start talking about this stuff, especially on the life insurance piece, and we didn't talk a whole lot about that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'll ask people, and I'll look, and I've done this with you two, is I'll look to the opposing spouse and ask, what happens if this person doesn't come home? You know, I'm not asking that person because they're not here anymore. It doesn't matter. But what about the ones you leave behind? So that could be life insurance, financials, just anything. But just don't be scared to open up and ask questions.
No, absolutely, man. Like, thank you. I really appreciate this, man, because it's a lot for you too. I mean, you're diving into sensitive topics. I mean, I know this is what you do for a living, and I know this is a harder podcast to have because it is so personal.
Yeah.
And there's things you can talk about and there's things you can't, because really at the end of the day, it's very individualized. And, you know, there's a lot of laws. It's like, you know, I couldn't have a doctor on here and, you know, sit here and really like hash through it to a certain degree, because there's HIPAA laws and shit like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't do this for my own benefit. I mean, I do because I enjoy sitting down with each of my guests and really like having these further in-depth conversations. But, you know, it's just like when I had my friend Brian Levy on, you know, and he deals in the later years care medical space, and like they do private care and in-home care.
I've met him.
And all that, like, you know, with Manchester Living, you know,
awesome.
Like, that's really real. Like, my mom is dealing with that right now with my grandmother from a state away. My aunt is dealing with that with my other grandmother, my Nana, in Ohio.
Yeah.
And, you know, fortunately, she's there in the house with her. Like, that. These are all different scenarios, but
you get to
a lot of people don't
conversations.
prepare and think about these things until they're having to deal with it.
It's too late.
And, you know, like, that's a big thing, man. Like, what are you going to do when your mom and dad can't take care of themselves anymore? God forbid they have to deal with something like dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that.
Yeah.
Are you prepared for that burden? Like, do you know what that's really going to take? Do you know how expensive those care facilities are? Or even if you're putting them in a retirement home.
Yeah.
Any of that shit, none of it's cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, those are booming industry. The baby boomers are all getting there now.
Well, God bless you for being able to have the variety of podcasts that you have, because you can have the upbeat ones. Let's talk about bourbon all day, or cigars, or guns, and whatever. But sometimes you have to bring it back to reality, right? And you have to talk about some of these things. And even for some of the viewers that might not realize, I'm glad I listened to that. You know, it might not be the most exciting thing, but there are things that you're bringing to them that you're adding value. And
I
saying,
mean,
hey,
that's what we
let's
try to
that.
do each week, man. Like, whether it's from business to hobbies to personal interest to, man, just being better at executing in some part of your life. But, man, thank you again, man. It's been great sitting down with you. We'll be back again next week. Your boy Biz will be back, I hope. I mean, unless he just decided to stay in Nebraska again. I doubt it. It's getting really fucking cold there. And hell, it's probably snowing there right now. I don't know. But, I mean, that asshole can't even call somebody back right now. So he must be really busy. It must be really important. And yes, I'm busting his balls. But we'll be excited to have him back. And you guys make sure you're checking out his podcast. I've been sharing that shit on all the social media. He's doing some cool things and sitting down with some really cool people. So you guys make sure you're checking that out too. And again, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you guys liked it, enjoyed it, please share it, like, comment. That helps us tremendously. I cannot tell you. You guys don't even think just your little comment or your like or your share. It goes a long ways in helping us and boosting us up in the algorithms and everything else. So, again, thank you guys. I love you. See you again next week. Peace.